Okay, I'm going to do a quick review of this Mtc Viper Pro, and this is the 10x44 model, so it's a fixed magnification. What's this? This is the latest version with the apparently improved optics. Now, even though it's in the box, I should point out I have actually used this rifle scope on my Red Wolf, and I took it off the Red Wolf for reasons I will explain presently. So anyway, when you buy it new, you get one of the spare little rings. It comes with millirads and micron mil dots on the adjusters. You get a lens cleaning cloth, and you get a little Allen key that you need to take the top of the adjustable caps off. I'll explain that in a minute. There's no instructions come with this, at least they didn't with mine, but I'm assuming that now, because there's so much on the MTC website on YouTube and on the MTC website about how to use these things, I'm assuming that's why there is no instructions in the actual box. So there she is. Quite heavy scope for a 44mm, and it's obviously it's a fixed power. So, and you get these little much hyped covers that you constantly hear about. They do tighten up, but I've just untightened these. Basically, this one here has got a little ×2 magnifier in the back, the idea being that you can look down it and see what your turret settings are, and also if you tilt it to one side you can see what your parallax settings are as well on the scope, because it's variable parallax, and it's got this geared up turret. The idea being, there's a little window here, and as I turn the turret you'll see that those readings there rotate. And the idea is that by undoing these small set screws that are in here, there's a couple of small Allen key screws that they supplied Allen key fits. By undoing those, this lifts off, and you end up with that, basically, one of those. Now then, on this, the bottom bit here, let me just take it off for you. It's quite hard to do with one hand, it's a decent camera, but can't get the bugger off now. It's one truly stuck on that one, unfortunately. Anyway, the bottom ring bit comes off, and you're supposed to put tape on this bit here. So you'll put tape round it. You can put clear tape on it, or you can get tape printed off on the website to the ballistic qualities of your rifle. So in a nutshell, what you do, if you set it at 30 yards, so imagine now for a minute that you put a piece of tape across that gap there. So you set it up at 30 yards, and then you just put a little line on there in pen, write 30 on it. So you know then that's your 30 yard setting. And then if you go to 40 yards, obviously it's going to change. So it might go to there, so then you get your bit of paper and you write 40 yards on, and then maybe you go that way again, do 50 yards, you write on there 50 yards, and then go the other way, and you go down to 20 yards, possibly even 10 yards. And then the idea is that whatever range you're at, by turning your turret, you've got the right settings already geared up for your elevation. So every time you shoot at various ranges, you should always be bob on. Because it's a 10 times mag, the parallax on it is very narrow. In other words, the depth of field on the parallax and your clarity is very narrow. So it's really parallax sensitive. So at 30 yards, you know, you will have to adjust the parallax to 30 yards. You can't leave it at 40 yards and hope to get away with it, because the image through the scope will be fuzzy. Likewise 20 yards, likewise 10 yards. So no matter what range you're at, you do need, because it's such a high mag scope, you do need to get the parallax pretty much bob on to get a nice clear picture, which is handy because obviously then you'll know the range and you can set your turrets as well. All sounds great theoretically. However, when it actually comes to using this thing in the field, I would imagine that if you're shooting HFT or just shooting targets, it's going to be absolutely brilliant, because you can use your parallax to get your range, and then use your adjustable turret to make sure that every shot's bang on. You won't have to do any hold over, any hold under, anything. You just dial in whatever range you're on, so 30 yards, 40 yards, whatever you've zeroed it at on there, you know that you're going to be shooting and hitting exactly bob on where you're putting the crosshairs. Now you can even put a separate ring of tapes on there, so if you're using a different type of pellet or a different rifle, swap the scopes over, slot that one in and get that one calibrated to your individual setup. So you can swap the scope between two rifles or two different types of pellets and still be bob on with your shooting, which is great. Sounds brilliant, sounds fantastic. Hunter's dream. You're never going to miss, because you just you no more hold over, no more hold under, just bang on and shoot. The only trouble is, because it's very parallax sensitive, it does mean that if you come across a rabbit to shoot, you're going to have to set this, you're going to have to get the parallax right before you can shoot. Otherwise, it's just, unless you're lucky and you've got it set for 30 yards and the rabbit pops out at 30 yards, then you're laughing. But if it comes out 40 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, 50 yards, it's going to just be a blurry mess. It really is quite tight on its clarity. So you have to be bang on with the parallax before you get a nice clear image. So it means that if you're out hunting and a rabbit comes out the hedgerow and you're going to shoot it, you're going to have to stop for a minute and adjust your parallax settings to get a clear image. And then once you've got your clear image, you can read off on the parallax what the range is, set your top turret to whatever range it is and shoot. But obviously that means that you're going to be doing a lot of faffing about, because you're going to be twiddling this, trying to find the clarity, and then you're going to be twiddling this to the right settings. As a hunting scope, it's useless, really, because you just haven't got the time to be doing all that messing about. You know, the only situation I can think it'd be any good in is if you're in a hide, sat outside of a warren or a roost, and you know that the warren's exactly 30 yards away. Then you can set your parallax at 30 yards, and you can set your top turret at 30 yards, away you go. Perfect. Or if you're out shooting targets, HFT, or just general messing about with targets, well, not HFT, because you can't use the parallax in HFT. So you might find this scope a bit difficult as well, because it really is very sensitive to the clarity of it. It becomes very blurry within a couple of yards of the parallax settings, because it's a 10 times mag scope. So it's not the best of things for HFT either, I wouldn't have thought. You know, really. So all in all, the theory behind it is great. You know, use a parallax, find the range, nice clear image. Then you know the range, 30 yards, bang, turn that to 30 yards. Crosshairs, bang on the target, shoot, and you get, you know, it should be a perfect shot, as long as you do your part, obviously, and you've got an accurate rifle. But in actual practice, there's so much messing about needed with it that really it becomes highly unpractical, or impractical rather. So it's perhaps not the best of scope. Well, it's definitely not a scope designed for hunting. It just isn't. Now you might say, oh, but I've seen pictures of people in the magazines out hunting with these things fitted to the scopes. And you probably have, and there's a simple reason for that. Most of the magazines rely on advertising, and obviously they're not going to go out and buy new rifles all the time to put in magazines. So they rely on these companies sending them these things for free to test. Now, a big company like MTC releasing lots of different scopes and all the rest of it, you know, you're not going to slag one off and say that it's bloody useless, because they probably won't send you anymore. And so while all the other magazines are, and some of the YouTube channels as well for that matter, reviewing all the latest gear, you won't be able to, because you've said that a particular thing is no good. So normally, at best, you'll get some veiled comments about how they're not especially suited for this or not especially suited for that. They won't out and out turn around and say, this is not a hunting scope, it's useless. Forget it. Likewise, when you see guys with the latest rifles out shooting and all the rest of it, you know, and you think, oh wow, he's got using such and such a Red Wolf or an FX or whatever. It must be brilliant because he's using it. Possibly is, but it's always worth remembering that more than likely they've been given those rifles for free. And if they haven't been given them for free, they've probably been given a massive discount on whatever they're using. Now, this means obviously, if someone said to me, oh right, we're going to give you the latest, I don't know, BSA whatever, it should be £2,000, you can have it for 600 quid, use it out in the field, I'm not going to slag it off, because, you know, it would be rude and it would jeopardise any future rifles that they may release that they might also want to sell me dirt cheap. So that's why half the time you've got to be so careful what you read in mags, what you see on certain YouTube channels and things like that, that you know, take whatever they say with a pinch of salt. Now me, I buy my stuff for cash. It's all bought for cash. If I make a balls up, it's my money wasted. And with this, I made an error. Because I bought this to put on the Red Wolf to try out, you know, something with a more higher mag and adjustable parallax, and this sounded like a great idea. And it is a great idea if what you're shooting at is in no hurry to bugger off. But if you're out shooting rabbits, as everyone knows, you haven't got all day. It's not going to sit there all day while you've set your parallax in, then also your height adjustments and all the rest of it. You know, it's going to be there for a minute or two and then it's going to go. So it's not ideal. I made a mistake. I freely admit it. Made an error. This is not a scope for hunting. End of. So no matter what you read, no matter what pictures you see, it isn't. The other thing with it as well that surprised me is because you hear all this hoo-ha about how these things are really, these caps going on about how they're magnetically, and they work all right, but they're so cheap. They feel so plasticky. It's unbelievable. Especially the front one. It feels really cheap, nasty. You know, the quality of the plastic, it's just awful. It's like, I don't know, it's just horrendous. It's really cheap and nasty. It's functional, it works, but it's just cheap and nasty. If you've ever used the Hawk scopes, they come with aluminium flip-up caps, and they're great, you know, really good quality. Likewise, anyone who's had Swarovski scopes will know that Swarovski make aluminium pop-up covers, as do Leica, as do most of them, and they're really good quality, but these feel really cheap. I mean, they look, the plastic's just, it's just awful. The idea is good, but it's just really crap. And the other thing is this turret. Look at this turret. Listen to this. That rattles about on the thing. See it moving there. I mean, it doesn't affect the way it works, but how cheap and nasty is that? You know, get your tolerances sorted, boys. You know, it's got a good idea, but it's, I don't know. And then this thing as well. The other thing with this is that I discovered on the one that's on there now. When you put your tape on there, if you're not careful, if you get a bit of grit in there or something, it'll wedge it. So this will turn, the top will turn, but the actual reading here, because this is free floating on this internal unit here, the cap will spin round and the middle bit will stay still, because it's not affixed by anything other than a friction fit. So if you get a little bit of grit in there or anything, you can turn the turret cap and the ring bit inside will just spin round freely, because there's no plastic indents or anything to hold it in place. So that's a bit of an oversight, really. You know, if anything gets in there, a little bit of grass, a little bit of straw, a little bit of hay, a little bit of dirt, and it wedges on the side, you'll be turning this thinking you're setting it, and your actual bit where your calibrations are will just stay still because it's wedged. And then, because of that, all your calibrations go out then, because you don't know where you are on the top bit. So really, they should have put an indent or something on there so the thing you attach your tape to sits tightly. What I ended up doing, I took this bit off, because that just flicks off. It's jammed on that one for some reason, but it just flicks off. And I put my tape on that part, and it just made it better. So all in all, not impressed. It's partly my fault because I bought the wrong scope. It's obviously not designed for hunting. It's designed for target shooting in an indoor range where you've got all day to set your parallax and then faff about with your settings on there. I mean, it's a good idea. It works well. The actual thing, I suppose, if they put some indents on there so that it held it tight, and if you got a bit of crap in there, it doesn't move. Most of the time it doesn't, but I did get a little bit of grip went in there, and I found I was turning the turret cap, which was spinning, but the target in here, I had it set for 30 metres and it had wedged, so it just said 30 metres, and as it was spinning around, it was doing nothing. So yeah, and these caps are dire. I took them off and they were took off straight away because they're just so cheap and nasty. I mean, the actual scope's not that badly made. It's quite a nicely made chunky scope, but them caps are rubbish. Optical clarity, not bad. Yeah, pretty good. In all fairness, optical clarity is pretty good. Not sure it's as good as the sort of higher end Hawk stuff. Had a bright sunny day with it the other day. It was nice and sunny, and it's sort of swinging around on a rabbit that was slightly in the glare, and I did get some glaring across the front of the scope and a bit of milking out, which was a bit of a letdown really. But other than that, in general, it's not bad. It's not bad. Not that keen either on the illumination thing, with pressing it once and then pressing it twice and 3 times to up the power and all the rest of it, and then pressing it and holding it in to turn it off. Just stick to a simple knob where you twist it and you get the brightness. You can alter it whatever you like as you're turning the knob. You know, on, off, turn the knob brighter, turn the knob dimmer. Easy. Why make things unnecessarily complicated and faff about? I don't know. So there you go. So generally speaking, as a target shooting scope or a long range sort of plinking scope for messing about with, it's okay. It's you know, it's a good scope. But hunting, no. It's too narrow a field on the parallax setting. So if you set it to 30 yards, you're going to lose clarity at 35 and going to lose clarity at 25. So you're going to have to reset it all the time virtually, no matter what you're shooting, unless you're very lucky. And likewise, fiddling about with this sounds great, and it is a good idea, I suppose, but actually doing it in the field, you know, set your parallax in, check the range, have a look, 30 yards, right, this 30 yards. By that time, whatever you're aiming at is going to bug it off in the real world. So all in all, target scope, yeah, okay, it's alright. Lose the covers, I would, because they just make it look cheap and nasty, because without them, the scope looks like a really good quality item, but with them, I just can't understand why they've made such a nicely finished scope and then put these little crappy plastic things on. They're just rubbish. They're just so cheap and horrible. So lose them, they're rubbish. And you've got yourself a reasonable target scope. But for hunting, I would definitely look elsewhere. Either go for a high-end scope or for similar sort of money to this, a Hawk. Personally, in the mid-range sort of scopes, the best one I've ever used in the mid-range stuff is the Hawk Frontier. Great scope, really nice, good range of zooms on it, superb optics. Them Frontiers, the optical quality is fantastic. The lens caps, really well made, nice aluminium ones, really good quality. And it, obviously, because you can go lower down in the zoom, down to sort of 2.5 or 5 or whatever, not so critical in the parallax. I mean, alright, hasn't got this adjustable turret thing on it, but if you're out hunting, this is of limited use. You're better off just learning your holdovers on your crosshairs. So there you go, MTC. Back in the box it goes, where it no doubt will end up staying, because I'm not a target shooter, and I really did this time buy the wrong thing, unfortunately. But hey, live and learn, you know. We all buy stuff and then think, why the hell did I buy that? So I will either buy, well, more than likely stick this on, possibly stick it on eBay, or part exchange it against something else. But it's alright, you know, it's a nice scope, but just not a hunting scope. It's more of a specialist target shooting scope. I didn't mention the reticule. That's pretty much what you get. Lots of aiming points on it. It's quite a nice ret actually, nice and fine as well. Like I say, optical quality of it's pretty damn good. It's not brilliant, but it's pretty good for the money, in all fairness. So there you go. Probably my fault because I bought the wrong bloody thing. But there you go. Thanks for watching.